Welcome into Tailgate Thursday for week number one of the 2025 football season. My name is David Morrison from the Ball Society, and Tailgate Thursday is your weekly weekend preview football show. And in this video, we're going to preview the big college football games this weekend, featuring our Vols, the SEC, and games across the nation. It is Labor Day weekend, the opening weekend of the college football season. I'm excited to preview these games with y'all. We begin with our beloved Tennessee Volunteers, preseason ranked number 24 in the country, heading down to Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, partaking in the Aflac kickoff game, taking on the Syracuse Orange. A lot of newness for both of these teams. First for Tennessee, Nico Iamaleava now at UCLA, and now enter in Joey Aguilar by way of UCLA and Appalachian State. He now takes over this program. Dylan Sampson off to the NFL, the reigning SEC Offensive Player of the Year. So you're going to have some newness at running back. Wide receivers is all brand new. Defense, you have some returning guys. Replacing first-round draft pick James Pierce would be the likes of a Joshua Josephs. You also have Jackson Moy and Brian Eason returning back. You may see the freshman Isaiah Campbell on that defensive line. Just a lot of rotation, some familiarity on the defense. Meanwhile, for Syracuse, they'll have to replace the leading passer in the country last year. Kyle McCord led this Syracuse team to a 10-3 season. Fran Brown, his first year, the Orange, a great season for them, winning the Holiday Bowl last year. But, they lost a ton of guys to the NFL and the transfer portal. Steve Angeli, now the new quarterback for the Orange, transferred in from Notre Dame. So, should be an interesting game. Definitely, I'm curious to see how both teams react to this first game. Like I said, a lot of changes for both of these programs, but should be a lot of fun. The Battle of the Orange, Syracuse and Tennessee, Saturday. All right, let's go across the SEC right quick. Huge game at the Horseshoe. The defending national champion Ohio State Buckeyes, ranked number 3 in the country, taking on the team they knocked out of the playoffs last season in the semifinals at the Cotton Bowl. The number 1 preseason team, the Texas Longhorns. So Ohio State obviously winning the national championship, and they knocked us out of the playoffs last year in the first round. Had that big run with Will Howard at quarterback. Now Will Howard's off to the NFL. Enter in true freshman quarterback Julian Sayin for the Buckeyes. They do return some players from last year's team, including talented freshman wide receiver Jeremiah Smith. Defensively, they got arguably the best defensive player in the country in Caleb Downs in the safety position for Ohio State. Meanwhile, for Texas, it's the Arch Manning show, as he's waited his turn for the last couple of years, I say. And Quinn Ewers now off to the NFL. Now Arch Manning takes over for Steve Sarkisian. Going to be very interesting to see how Texas handles this pressure. Could they become national champions? Everybody in the media is kind of predicting to them be the national champions, but a tough test early on the season at the Horseshoe, the big noon game on Fox, Texas and Ohio State. An intriguing game, 3:30 on ABC down at Doak Campbell Stadium. The Florida State Seminoles welcomes in the 8th-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. Both of these programs had very interesting seasons, for lack of a better term. For Alabama, the first year without Nick Saban, with Caleb DeBoer in year 1, had an interesting season, had some big wins with the likes of knocking off of Georgia, but failed to win their bowl game last year against Michigan. So now they head into this contest with Florida State. Florida State obviously coming off a disastrous 2-10 season, losing to Georgia Tech in week 0 in Ireland, and it just never got any better for the Noles. So, some newness obviously for both of these teams. First for Alabama, and kind of a rarity now in college football, which was not 5-6 years ago, but In today's transfer portal era, it's rare to see a quarterback kind of wait in the wings to take over the program. Obviously, we talked about Arch Manning just a minute ago, but Ty Simpson now takes over as QB1 for the Crimson Tide. How will he handle this road environment at Florida State? Florida State will rely on Thomas Costellos, beg your pardon, transfer from Boston College. Will take over. DJ Uiagalelei and Brock Glenn and those guys last year. Picked up a couple of wide receivers in the transfer portal, including Robinson from USC and former Tennessee wide receiver Squirrel White. Defensively, a lot of new guys there too. So huge year for both coaches. For Caleb DeBoer, probably not on the hot seat level, but definitely Mike Norvell. This is a must-win game for him. And of course, Gus Malzahn, former Auburn head coach and UCF head coach, now the offensive coordinator for Florida State. But should be fun to see the Crimson Tide and the Seminoles. Prime time, 7:30 ABC, 9th-ranked LSU heading down to Death Valley. I guess it is the Battle of Death Valley. Taking on number 4 Clemson, 7:30 p.m. kickoff on ABC. Both teams strong contenders to win a national championship this year. This is Brian Kelly's best team he's had in Baton Rouge. Garrett Nussmeier returns back at quarterback for the Bayou Bengals. So, like I said, trying to make that championship run. Keep in mind, LSU has not won a season opening game since 2019. They took on some tough challenges in these week 1 games, like the Florida State and the USC in the past. So how are they going to do on the road taking on Clemson? Meanwhile, for the Tigers of Clemson, defending ACC champions, Cape Klubnik back for the Clemson Tigers. Knocked off in the playoffs by Texas in the first round in Austin. So looking to get back to the top. Well, I guess they are at the top of the ACC, but try to get back to the top of the college football world, especially in this ACC that has taken some blows with a little bit of realignment, plus just the uncertain future of what this conference could be. So right now, Clemson's kind of waving that flag for them. But we'll see, can LSU snap that week 1 losing streak, or will Clemson have a huge statement win at home against LSU? All right, let's pick up the pace a little bit here. Let's go to Friday night, 8 o'clock on Fox. The Auburn Tigers and the Baylor Bears. Huge year for Hugh Freeze on the hot seat. A lot of uncertainty and a tough road environment going to McLean Stadium to take on the Baylor Bears. Dave Aranda's crew looking to get back into Big 12 contention. You got 2 interesting quarterbacks. First for Auburn, Jackson Arnold, now the new QB, replacing Peyton Thorne. Jackson Arnold comes from Oklahoma, and Sawyer Robinson returns back for the Baylor Bears. Definitely a huge game for both of these programs, and getting off to a good start. Should be a fun one Friday night, 8 o'clock on Fox. Sunday down in Atlanta, kind of wrapping up this Atlanta weekend of college football. 13th ranked South Carolina hosting, but playing the Virginia Tech Hokies. Obviously, I guess the big storyline, more from a legacy and a family perspective. Shane Beamer, the head coach at South Carolina, taking on his dad's former club, legendary Virginia Tech head coach Frank Beamer's Virginia Tech Hokies. So we'll see how Shane does against his dad's former team. Lenore Sellers in South Carolina, looking to try to make at least an appearance in the college football playoffs. They just missed out last year on it. And now, like I said, a lot of preseason hype for this Gamecocks team, and some newness on this team also. Meanwhile, for Virginia Tech, kind of a big year for the Hokies. Have been slipping in the ACC running. Last year, they lost to Vanderbilt on the road in week 1. So now, matter of fact, this is the back-to-back SEC opponents that Virginia Tech's going to face the first couple of weeks in the season, taking on South Carolina in week 1, and then they host Vanderbilt in week 2. But should be very interesting to see Sunday afternoon, 3 o'clock from Atlanta, the Hokies and the Gamecocks. All right, let's go across the nation here, and we'll get you out of here. Sunday night, 7:30 ABC from Hard Rock Stadium in Coral Gables. the third of 3 top 10 matchups in week 1. 6th ranked Notre Dame taking on number 10 Miami. Once again, new quarterbacks at programs here. So for Notre Dame, defending runner-ups of the college football playoffs, Riley Leonard now gone. Enter in C.J. Carr at quarterback. So can Marcus Freeman and the Irish get back to the college football playoff and win a national championship? Meanwhile, for Miami, they have to replace Cam Ward, the number 1 pick in the NFL draft, to the Tennessee Titans. And now they bring in former Georgia starting quarterback Carson Beck. So an interesting battle there. Both teams looking to make big week 1 statements for Marcus Freeman and the Irish taking on Mario Cristobal and the Hurricanes. Should be interesting to see an old school college football rivalry meeting on a Sunday night. All right, jumping back to Friday, 8 o'clock ESPN from Folsom Field in Boulder, Colorado. Deion Sanders taking on Georgia Tech. Man, I kind of wish this game was in Atlanta, have Deion go back to Atlanta. But anyway, it'll still be interesting to see. But it will be Caden Slaughter going for the Colorado Buffaloes, former Tennessee quarterback and Liberty quarterback, replacing Shedeur Sanders. Meanwhile, for Georgia Tech, Hayes King is back for Georgia Tech. And, Brett Key and the Yellow Jackets, they had the tendency to pull off some big wins. This is a big game for them and their standards. Definitely a dark horse to win the ACC. They get Clemson in a couple of weeks. They'll host them at Bobby Dodd Stadium, but need to have a big win here. And, Colorado, part of the Big 12. And the Big 12 definitely is a conference that, I would say a half a dozen teams could win this year. It's a very wide open league and a very fun league. But it will be the Yellow Jackets and the Buffaloes Friday night. All right, Monday night, Labor Day night, the debut of Bill Belichick as the head coach of North Carolina as he takes on TCU, 8 p.m. Eastern time Monday night on ESPN. So, kind of a interesting offseason for North Carolina. With Bill Belichick and kind of his personal life being publicly displayed. So can he get his attention focused on this matchup? Meanwhile, for TCU and Sonny Dykes, just, once again, trying to get back into Big 12 contention. So how's Bill Belichick going to handle this environment, or, the college football environment in general? We shall see coming up. And then finally, I forgot to mention this in the SEC games, but going around the SEC as we wrap it up here, obviously a lot of cupcake games. With Georgia hosting Marshall, you got Texas A&M hosting UTSA, and Oklahoma and Illinois State, Florida and Long Island, and on and on and on. But 2 games I will say watch out in the SEC for could be upset potentials. Mississippi State traveling to Hattiesburg to take on Southern Miss. Southern Miss end up picking up Marshall's head coach Charles Huff. Had a great run at Marshall, won the Sun Belt last year, and now is taking the Southern Miss job. Brought about 20 players from Marshall over to Southern Miss, and kind of picked up some players in the transfer portal. Meanwhile, Mississippi State, was winless in SEC play. Was 2-10 last year. This is a kind of a big year for Jeff Levy to get off to a fast start, but we'll see what happens. And then Kentucky's hosting Toledo. Toledo last year upset Mississippi State in Starkville. Could they pull up a week 1 upset against Kentucky? Kentucky, a program that's trying to find an identity right now. They're going to go with 7th-year player Zal Calzada for their starting quarterback coming up on Saturday. And those games are in the noon slot, same time Tennessee's playing. But that's kind of some games around the SEC. But big week 1 for college football. I'm excited that football is back, and we appreciate you for watching Tailgate Thursday. Don't forget, the podcast is out, Good Old Rocky Talk with Brad, Frank, and myself. Also, Vol Society Live each and every Tuesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time with myself. Bring your questions, bring your comments. Let's have a lot of fun that night. But until next time, this is David Morrison for Tailgate Thursday, and as always,